When you think about phishing, what comes to mind? Is it viruses? Super complex code? Well, what if I told you the real weapon is none of that? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real strategy and, spoiler alert, it's all about hacking the human brain.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight right off the bat. It's not about viruses. I know most of us hear phishing and immediately think of some nasty piece of malware infecting our computers, but here's the thing. That's just the fallout. It's the symptom, not the actual disease.
And it's also not about some genius hacker in a dark room typing away, writing thousands of lines of crazy complex code to smash through firewalls. Nope. In fact, some of the most destructive attacks out there use almost no sophisticated code at all. Why? Because they found a vulnerability that's way, way more powerful.
See, the target isn't your computer's operating system, it's the operating system running inside your own head. These attackers are tapping into a set of predictable, totally hardwired human behaviors. There are basically 6 psychological rules that they know will make you click.
So the big question is, do you know what they are? I mean, really think about it. If one of these emails landed in your inbox right now, would you be able to spot the trap? The answer? Well, it might surprise you. And this is so important because we're not just talking about a tech problem anymore. This has blown up into a massive financial crisis.
Just how massive? Try $26 billion. That's how much money was lost to just one type of sophisticated phishing, what's called business email compromise, in just 3 years. That's a staggering number. This isn't a couple of kids in a basement. This is a full-blown global industry built on pure deception.
You know, the famous security consultant Kevin Mitnick, he absolutely nailed it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, a company can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on firewalls, but if an attacker can call one trusted person and that person complies, all that money spent on technology is essentially wasted. And that's it, right there. That is the heart of social engineering. Why pick the lock when you can just get someone to open the door for you?
So what's in this hacker's playbook? Well, it's pretty much lifted straight from the work of a psychologist named Robert Cialdini. He figured out these 6 universal principles of how to persuade people, and what have attackers done? They've weaponized them. They're literally using our own psychology against us. So let's dive in and break them down.
Okay, first on the list is reciprocation. This one's simple. It's that feeling you get, that deep-seated impulse to repay a favor. You know, someone does something nice for you, you feel like you owe them. Attackers love this one. They'll offer you a free report or some kind of special gift, and even if it's small, it creates this little feeling of obligation that makes you just a bit more likely to click on their link.
Next up, we've got commitment and consistency. As humans, we have this powerful, almost obsessive desire to be consistent with what we've done or said in the past. So let's say an attacker sees you signed an online petition. They can then send you a phishing email about that exact topic because they know you'll feel an internal pressure to click and stay consistent with your public stance.
Then you've got social proof. This is the classic monkey see, monkey do. We are just wired to follow the actions of others, especially when we're not sure what to do. So an attacker crafts an email that says something like, "Many of your colleagues have already updated their password here." It creates this illusion of safety. You think, well, if everybody else is doing it, it must be legit, right? Okay, this next one, authority, is a huge one. Probably one of the most powerful tools in their entire arsenal. From the time we're kids, we are taught to obey authority figures. So when an email pops up that looks like it's from your CEO or the IT department or even a government agency, our first instinct isn't to question it, it's to comply.
And then there's the principle of liking. Super straightforward. We're way more easily persuaded by people we know and like. It's just human nature. And this is exactly why attackers will fake an email to look like it's from a friend, a coworker, or even a brand that you use and trust. That familiar name just makes your guard drop. And last but not least, we have scarcity. This is the good old fear of missing out, or FOMO. We're wired to think that if something is limited, it must be more valuable. So when you see things like, your account will be deleted in 12 hours unless you act now, that creates a huge sense of urgency. It's designed to make you panic and bypass your rational brain so you act fast, without thinking.
Now, the really clever part is that these principles almost never get used alone. In the real world, attackers mix and match them. Let's look at a real-life example, the APT-37 attack. This was a masterclass in patience. First, they spent time on Facebook just building trust with the target. That's the liking principle at work. Then, they offered a lure, secret military documents. That plays on reciprocation and authority. And finally, the trap. They convinced the person to install a special PDF viewer, which was, of course, malicious.
And look at how subtle the deception was. The legitimate file was named one thing, the malicious one was almost identical. They just added PDF_security to the end. It's a tiny change, but it's brilliant, right? It makes it look not just legitimate, but like an even more secure version of the real thing, all designed to get you to trust it and click.
Here's a really cool, kinda true crime detail from that case. The investigators found a linguistic fingerprint. The attackers used a specific North Korean-style transliteration for the word computer, computer. It's a tiny little slip-up, but it was a massive clue that pointed right back to their origin.
So, of course, these tactics never stand still. They're always evolving. The latest game in town is something called phishing with QR codes. And it starts exactly where you feel safest, on your corporate laptop. An email comes into your company inbox, which you know is secure. It has a simple QR code for something totally normal, like resetting your password or something.
But the attack doesn't happen there. Here's the brilliant and terrifying part. You pull out your personal phone, which is totally unprotected by company security, and you scan the code. And in that instant, boom, the threat jumps from your secure corporate environment to your wide-open personal device. Your company's security systems, they're completely blind. They have no idea what's happening now.
So naturally, we think, okay, the solution is more training, right? Well, the data tells a kind of depressing story. When you look at the numbers, untrained employees click on phishing links about 5.3% of the time. You'd think trained employees would be way better, but they click 4.6% of the time. That's a tiny, tiny improvement. It basically tells us that the whole annual watch this boring video training model, it just isn't working.
So what does work? It's not about making people sit through another mandatory video once a year. It's about giving them little nudges and warnings, right in the moment. You know those little banners that pop up in your email client? The ones that say, hey, this sender is from outside the company, or warning, this link goes somewhere we don't recognize. Those simple, in-context warnings, they slash click rates by 40 to 50%. It's a huge difference.
But here's the real takeaway. At the end of the day, your best defense can't just be hoping people do the right thing. It has to be a real technical safety net. We're talking about stuff like DMARC, which makes it way harder for attackers to spoof your company's email. Definitely multi-factor authentication, because it makes a stolen password practically useless. And things like URL sandboxing, which actually opens a link in a safe, isolated environment to check if it's dangerous before you ever get to it. These are the things that catch that inevitable human error. And that really brings us to the final crucial question. You hear this phrase all the time in corporate security, the human firewall. But after looking at all this, you really have to ask yourself, is your human firewall the last line of defense, or is it the only one? Because if you're only relying on people to never make a mistake, to never click the wrong link, well, you're not really fighting the battle. You've already lost.